Speaking freedom, giving you the answers to be free. Be free.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance is about to begin.
Hey everyone, welcome to Speaking Freedom TV's Journey to Freedom. Today we have a special guest. His name is Patrick. Hey Patrick.
Hey, how you doing, doctor? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How have you been?
Doing fine. You know, I'm here in Los Angeles, and I'm telling you, the fires have been like outrageous, but we're finally good. We just got a beautiful rain this past weekend, so we're doing all
Oh,
right.
that's amazing. I'm
Yeah,
glad that y'all got some rain.
yeah,
Nothing like natural precipitation
yeah. Seriously,
to to
right?
to calm things down.
Totally.
So, Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I do a bunch of random stuff. I'm an actor turned musician turned app developer. Yeah, I work on a project called MuseFlow right now that's kind of reinventing the way music is taught, similar to how I taught myself how to play piano. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's been really incredibly rewarding coming from like an artist background and such, and an
Mm-hmm.
actor and a
Mm-hmm.
musician, and like moving into this entrepreneurial world. It's pretty wild. I've never been inside of a business like this before, you know?
I'm sure it's a lot different, but to have the knowledge behind what you're building makes it even better because now you know from a different perspective what is actually needed versus somebody that's just randomly trying to build something and they have no clue and they're trying to do market research. Well, market research, I mean, it's good, but it's not as good as firsthand experience.
Yeah, as like lived experience, right? And
Mhm,
like
mhm,
I know what works for a piano education because I've been in the bad and the good.
mhm.
And so as a professional pianist here in Los Angeles, I'm like, well, what if there was a way to teach the way that I kind of taught myself? And that's what we kind of made into an app, you know? And so yeah, I guess you're right. There's a very different perspective from like the business marketing standpoint to
Mhm,
like the lived experience. And yeah, I think you can find an easy middle ground there, of course. And that's the
mhm.
product, you know?
Yeah. And if you're working with a good team or if you're your own team, sometimes when we move into certain dynamics of ourselves, we don't have a functioning team outside of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes for some people that actually works better than getting other people involved.
I could believe it, though I tend to really love collaboration.
Mhm,
It's like
mhm.
I'm realizing that, like, in retrospect, now kind of moving into audiobooks after COVID, because how else are we gonna tell stories except, like,
Right.
in my own little sound booth by myself looking at a manuscript. I'm like, "Well, that's really cool," but, like, oh, man, I miss the energy that comes on a set of 300 people all moving towards the same goal in this quick time. Like, oh, there's nothing like that kind of collaboration, you know?
It really isn't, and it's no really better feeling than being able to create something and collaborate with somebody else because I mean, of course, I am a solopreneur. I
Mhm.
normally do a lot of things myself just because I like the hands-on experience.
Cool.
More so because if I hire somebody, I want to know what they're supposed to be doing, not because somebody told me or I read it somewhere, but
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm. So when you get a chance to work with somebody and you see the outcome of two brains bringing forth something great, it is phenomenal. Um,
Yeah, it really
so
is.
how did you get into acting? How did acting change into music and or I'm not sure which one of those came first or if they're interchangeable. And then how did that turn into you developing the act?
Well, I started off, I mean, like 8 years old, I was on the stage with my dad at his dinner theater doing a joke, and it's that joke that, like, when an audience laughs at something that you're like you say or you do
Hmm, hmm.
purposefully, not because you're like being made fun of or anything like that, but because you actually wanted to
Intentional.
inspire that,
Hmm.
oh my God, it ruined me. The theater bug just got me at that point, right? And then, like, right around the same time I was starting piano lessons, I hated every minute of it. I did not like the traditional way of teaching, which is like, here's a new skill or a
Hmm.
new note or a new rhythm. I don't know. Do you have like a music background yourself?
I've played a couple instruments. I've never been really persistent with anything. Some of it my own fault, some of it not. But I do actually own a piano upstairs in my home.
Okay.
I was hoping that my kids would learn how to play. They totally wasn't into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my daughter, well, not so much now, but when she was younger, would sometimes just sit down and just kind of fiddle with it. And I love that. But, as they get older, they get busy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you don't start early, then I think it's harder to get on into it,
Hmm.
Even from the neurological standpoint, like neuroplasticity and everything like that, it's harder to learn when you don't
Hmm.
have a foundation later in
And
life. But
it,
there are so many people that want to learn how to play an instrument for so many reasons later in
Mhm.
life. Whether
Right.
that's like, I need to pass the time, I want to learn a new skill, I want to learn how to creatively express myself through an
Hmm.
instrument, I want to be challenged. There's just so many reasons why so many people pick up an instrument later. But the traditional way of teaching an instrument with like a private teacher
Hmm.
is they give you a new note or a new rhythm or some concept. We call that a new skill, for example, right? There's
Hmm.
any sort of new skill. And then they give you one song or two, if you're lucky, to go home and practice that song, repeating it over and over and over until perfection, bringing it back to your teacher the next week, and they stamp their approval, and then you move on to the next skill. Okay. That didn't work for like my ADHD brain,
Hmm.
which I didn't know at the time I had. And I just didn't like this repeating of the same things over and over and over. I didn't like that. And I was only learning the new skill in the context of those specific songs. I wasn't able to apply those new skills elsewhere.
Hmm.
You see, so it wasn't like cumulative learning, right? It wasn't skill acquisition at its finest, which is cumulative, right?
Hmm.
So I quit after 8 years, and actually my teacher retired, and I just stopped taking lessons.
Right.
And so then I started picking up my parent sheet music. I was able to actually read music a little bit at that time. I was way behind for 8 years of piano lessons because I didn't like it at all. My parents had to ground me to practice.
Right.
But
Which is gonna make it harder for you to even want to learn.
exactly. So like I took a little bit of a break, but then I went back to it and I looked at my parents' sheet music and I just found little phrases that I really loved, right? Little bits. And I ended up taking those pieces outside of the song. I closed the sheet music and then I just started improvising around them. And I started putting them in different musical contexts. Put it in the left hand, put it in the right hand. I inverted them. I switched them back and forth. I put them in different keys, different time signatures. I really fleshed it out. And then I just kept doing that with little bits of music here and there. Okay. Just really fleshing it out and getting that little bit into my body. Cut to college, I was the only acting major that was able to play piano.
Mm.
And a bunch of people were throwing music in front of me because they wanted to rehearse it. And I was able to play it just at first sight. I'd never seen the song before. Cut to, when I came out to LA, I moved out here to be an actor. I got representation back when I was in Chicago. And then I moved out here because, my agents were out here and everything like that. And so, I did that for like a solid 6 years, but the breaks in between the gigs were too
Yeah.
wide. And it was such an up and down when it came to my self confidence. And I hated. I really didn't like it. I was getting super burnt out by it. And I was still waiting tables at that time. And so my wife was like, why don't you go play piano? You've been doing it your entire life. Just go to, and I like brought my upright piano with me. I shipped it out here to LA. And I like keep playing it all the time. And she's like, why don't you go do that? I was like, okay. And so I tried to go get some gigs. And lo and behold, 3 months later, I got my first job. A month later, I got another gig playing background jazz at an Italian restaurant here. I got another one playing at a steakhouse, another background jazz, another residency. And then I got my piano bar here in Los Angeles that I play at.
That is
And so
amazing.
I've been playing there for like, 5 years now. And then I was like, well, what if there's a way to actually port the way of
Hmm.
teaching myself how to play piano? What if there's a way to make that sort of iterative kinesthetic learning outside the context of songs? What if there was a way to make that into an app for other people to learn how to play themselves? And so that's ostensibly what MuseFlow is. And so I brought that over to my friend who's a music teacher, and he's like, I've literally had the same idea. Let's talk about this. And so we fleshed it out, and then we brought it to some friends who are engineers and data scientists, and here we are 2 years later, continuing to build this thing on our as a part-time thing, but we have 40 people that are using this and paying for it, and
And
you
that's
know,
amazing.
it's like,
The
it's a thing now, you know? And so we're about to start looking for actual investments in next year, early
Y'all
next year.
gonna do crowdfunding?
No, we're going to do venture capitalists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that it is amazing the way you describe being able to teach yourself because a lot of times in general, when it's time to learn something, if it's something new, we get frustrated, and instead of looking for ways to intake the information and give a different output with the same results, we don't, because it's just like, darn, like they said it's supposed to be done this way, and you feel like that is the only way for it to be done. But it's
Yeah.
several ways to skin a cat. Not that we're skinning cats, Peter. We love the felines, but there is more than one way to get stuff done, and a lot of times, I think it's more of a societal programming that
Yeah,
make us
totally.
feel like no, it's only one way. And so for you to discover a way for yourself and then be able to use it literally, because nobody taught you sheet music. The little bit that you did know, you just used your own intuition and
Yeah.
your own level of understanding to turn that into being able to play at will.
Well, it was fun, you know, like
It's a
taking
challenge.
right, exactly. It's like a perfect challenge. We call that flow state. Now, flow state
Mhm.
is where the challenge matches your skill set so perfectly that it's just
Mhm.
the challenge is just a little bit right outside that your skill set. Every human needs a challenge. We all
Mhm.
need it. It's just a part of our programming. And so that's what flow state is. You're perfectly challenged just a little bit. It's what video games do. You know,
Mhm.
they push you just a little bit, little bit. They gamify it, and that is and that's you lose track of time when you're playing video games, and you're
I
just so
think I am that way when it comes to working. When I'm in my office,
love
if
that,
I
love
get
that.
into I write books, I do videos if I'm sitting here and I think about something, but I when I sit down in my office at this desk, I it doesn't even have to be anything crazy, but I will get lost in time,
Hmm.
and it's just like I didn't eat today. I didn't
Yeah,
do
yeah.
anything because I've been so consumed. But it's a good thing. And I think maybe that is the reason why I do so many things myself, because it's a challenge for me to get it done and see the accomplishment. I mean, I'm sure it's some type of childhood trauma that also lives there too, of not being thinking that I can depend on people. But
Mm,
just the fortitude for me to press on and do things, the excitement that I had last week when I had converted audiobooks into paperback books and ebooks. I was telling my children, like, oh my God, I just can't believe that it started. I recorded books, kind of like how you said about being in COVID. But I did this, I started in 2016. I noticed that you could get paid to narrate. And then I was like,
yeah.
well, let me get all this equipment. I'm going to narrate for somebody. And then I got the equipment, set it up. And I was like, I got books that I need to record. Why am I trying to work on somebody else's thing when I need to
Nice.
tackle my own thing?
Love
And I've
that.
been consumed ever since.
I love that. Yeah, you get into the flow, right?
You really do. And even with being an author and y- having not having to choosing to edit your own material, because you got to take breaks, you got to pause, you kind of got to get it from a different perspective, but the challenge of seeing what you didn't see the first time
Mm.
is phenomenal.
Oh, I totally dig it. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's great perspective, and you can find flow anywhere, you
Yeah.
know. But we're trying to make you or allow you to find flow in simply learning how to play piano, you know.
Mhm.
And nobody really ever thought about that because there's really never been a way to do that without the
Mhm.
use of technology. So to be able to the way that we do it is we give you an infinite amount of music, sheet music, that is perfectly right at your level with the notes that you know so far. You can kind of place yourself wherever you want to in the curriculum.
Mhm.
You can place yourself at any sort of challenge. We group them by levels, right? Gamification. And you can place yourself at any level where your skill matches that challenge. And then so we give you an infinite amount of sheet music. and you play that music. Keep going, just keep going. You can adjust the tempo if you want. If it's too hard, you can bring it down and then slowly incrementally increase it yourself. But you have to get 4 phrases of music, which are 4 measures long, 4 phrases in a row at 95% accuracy to be able to
move up.
pass that tier, to be able to pass that level. And so that sort of way of like the infinitely generated music that we can give you would be impossible with the traditional ways of teaching because you need that music. You need the sheet music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're generating it. We've already written 10,000 phrases for you, and we're giving it to you that in this flow way that interlinks them together,
Mm-hmm.
that never lets it repeat. We give them to you at that perfect level. Yeah, that's impossible to do without technology.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Because one, being able to track somebody's progress, and
truly.
then being for them to be able to um exemplify the knowledge in a way to where you feel comfortable and confident with taking them to the next level. But that's not easily accessible when you're dealing with people, because you might get it more than I think that you get it. And if I doubt your competence and the ability to comprehend, then I will slow you down, despite the fact that you actually need a little bit more in order for it to look like what I need to see.
Yeah, right. It's that real-time feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
that 95% accuracy at the goal tempo. 4 phrases in a row. It's that like, yeah. Well, if you can play 4 phrases in a row at 95% accuracy, we're saying you successfully mastered that new
Right.
skill, and
Mhm.
it's so quantifiable at that point.
And I can
Um,
only imagine those skills transferring into other areas of your life.
I think there's a lot of the meta skills that we teach in MuseFlow is try to find flow wherever you can,
Mhm.
right? Be present.
Mhm.
It's also that look for situations that are conducive to the way that you learn,
Mhm.
because so many people learn in different ways.
Mhm.
And if putting flow state first is key for you, well, that's very key for me, for my ADHD brain. And I've talked with a lot of our users that have ADHD. They're like, this is the thing that I need to find everywhere in anything that I try to learn is that flow state, that challenge that perfectly matches my skill level. Just put it a little bit harder than where I lie.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's key. And I'm like, that's so interesting to talk about. I love that stuff. So yeah, for sure. Find what works for you.
So, what has been the hardest thing in the course of this process, and how did you conquer it?
I think one of the biggest things for me was, well, I think there's 2 actually. For me personally, okay? And this can't, of course, I can't say this is like generally speaking, this is what you're gonna have to deal with when you build an app, right? No, this is personal experience. The 2 things
Now,
that I,
now, now, I will say, take notes, because there might be some things that you can learn from what he about to say. Okay.
so you're a solo entrepreneur,
Mhm.
right? I knew that I couldn't build this by myself. I needed
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
software engineering skills to be able to do it. We brought on 3 people that we thought were brilliant, okay? And they're absolutely brilliant, but they think very differently than we do, or at least than I do. One of them is extremely clinical,
Mhm.
very to the point, very curt and blunt, and but also lacks a lot of the like communicative skills that I think are like necessary to like work with people, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting because I talk a lot and he talks very little. I I'm blunt in a way, but he's very blunt in a very different way. So it was
Mhm.
this like communication styles, like our very differing communication styles got us into trouble early on in our relationship, into our partnership. We were really good friends before this. And
Mhm.
then when we started doing business together, I realized that we were actually like very different people. I knew that we were different people going into this anyway, but I didn't know about it like in this way,
How
you
it
know?
would affect you.
Yeah. And so we had to have some really tough conversations early on. I am a radical, honest person. I want you to know how I feel about our relationship at all times. We
Mhm.
need to be on the exact same page to move forward for me. Okay. So when there was these disconnects, I brought it up. I was like, we need to talk about this. We need to get on a phone call. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, why can't we just like not and go through one of our co-founders? Like, stop talking to me, go through our co-founder. And I'm like, nope, not going to work for me. We're co-founders together, man. We
I
need to
gotta
be
be
able
able
to
to
talk
communicate.
to each other. And so
Mm-hmm.
we got on the phone and hashed it out. We said some stuff and we were like, we were angry, but we kept our emotions tampered down and just really worked through the problem of our miscommunications. And then we talked about solutions. Okay, how do we move forward here? What can you do to help me? And what can I do to help you? How can we adjust together to make MuseFlow better? We need to work together to make MuseFlow better. How are we going to do that? And so we talked about solutions, and now we both change our behaviors to adjust for each other. People think that changing behavior is hard. I disagree.
Not if
I-
you have a goal and a purpose and a reason, but
yeah,
also once you realize it has to be brought to your attention because you can't change something that you don't realize is an issue. Once
totally.
it's brought to your attention, then you can start self-analyzing and doing some self-checks like, wait a minute, you know what, I can see where this could be an issue or this could be a problem. And it's
Hmm.
so funny to listen to you describe it because it's the way all relationships should work, where you have to hash out even through the tough, the gritty conversation, because normally those tough and gritty conversations is what give you the most understanding and actually lead to the most peace.
Ain't that the truth, right? Like I think about it with my wife, and I'm like, we are constantly talking about negotiations and behavioral changes that I can make her life easier and that she can make my life easier. We're constantly doing that with each other. When I hear couples that they say to each other, "Oh, we never fight," I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, y'all hide a
it,
lot.
yeah, exactly, exactly." Like, oh, things are gonna blow up in like 2 years.
And let me say, okay, so I don't believe in arguing and fussing and all of that, but you can have tough discussions without it being a blowout. And it's
Truly,
cool, but you have to have, at some point you're going to have some disagreement and difference of opinion because y'all do not think exactly the same.
yeah.
And in order for y'all to grow, they have to be had. I what the most problem is, change is not bad. Why you change can determine if the change results in a permanent pattern behavior change, or if you're going to change your pattern for a little while, let it seem like it's smoothing everything over, and then revert back to who you were.
Mm, mm-hmm. Give me an example of that. I'm actually really curious what like I'm
Uh,
curious examples of like negative behavioral changes in that context, I guess.
So, let's say that, let's use you all for example. Let's say that um, the conversation went a little bit different. You talked, you fussed, you cussed, you said some mean things, and let's say now you both said you're going to communicate better. Now you say you're going to do a better job at tackling the issues to find the solutions to the problems instead of pointing out problems, and it lasts for a month. Let's say it lasts for 6 months. Everything is going good, it's flowing, and then the communication begins to break down because
Mm.
even though it has worked, that's not who in their mind. That's not really what they wanted to do. They're just doing it just because it seems easier. So it's kind of like I want to say it's sort of a tool of manipulation, but I don't want to cast that out there in a way
Okay.
to where it seems like I'm saying somebody is being manipulative.
Sure,
But
sure,
if
sure.
you change for a short period of time, or until things get rough and now you revert back to the way you used to be. So now I'm shutting down. Now I'm not even telling you what we said we would do. What would be talk about the issues before it becomes a huge problem. You know, you tackle things when it's minute. It is easy to see, to cipher through, and to find a solution. But so the goal is to create change because of self-reflection versus a change because somebody said, no, I don't want you to act like that.
Yeah, or like I totally see that because you're not doing it for me. Don't do it for
Mhm,
me.
mhm,
Don't do it for
mhm,
me. Do
mhm.
it so that we can make our product better. You know, do it so that your opinions can be heard and my opinions can be heard and they
And
can be
both
weighed
perspectives.
accordingly. And that,
Mhm.
yeah, that both of our perspectives can be heard. And then we move forward from there and decide which one's best in a very egoless sort of way. I think that's key. And that is a tenet of our company is egoless decision making. Always put the product first, you know?
And as long as you do that, it's almost like relationships again. If you put the relationship first and realize that you're tackling the problem and not the person,
Mhm.
then you will end up finding more solutions instead of looking for more problems.
It's not personal. It's not
It's not.
personal. Even though it may seem like it is, it's not personal. No. Like we're here
it,
we're here to make this better, you know?
yeah.
Let's talk about a common goal here, you know? We want to communicate. That's the common goal.
Yeah. And now we both have to be willing to really face ourselves to really become better communicators.
Be humble. That's always key
Mhm.
for me too. It's like admit your faults. Like come on. I always find that like, oh man, I just had a friend break up recently, okay?
Mhm.
Which I've actually never had before in my life.
Really? Oh my god, they hurt so
Yeah.
bad. They hurt so
They
bad.
they well, it was with this like I don't want to call her a narcissist, but she displayed a lot of narcissistic tendencies,
Mhm.
and I think when I pinpointed a wrong, I always like fit within her life very specifically, and she fit within my life very specifically,
Mhm.
right? But when we started kind of broadening that horizon a little bit, I started noticing how fuzzy her morals kind of were,
Mm.
and
Oh. Mhm.
I pointed it out, and I said, "That's wrong." You know? I and then I got the ick, right? I got the, like, guttural feeling of, "Oh, man, oh, I can't be friends with somebody that actually does this," right? And she wasn't willing to admit it. She wasn't willing to change and accept it, and I think part of it is because, like, she built this, like, steel castle of her personality on a mountain of sand,
Mhm.
and when you just try to, like, pierce that personality, it just doesn't or, like or you or
It's a defense mechanism. It is survival skills. So, I've done some episodes on
survival skills. Yeah,
of
yeah.
this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci, not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focused coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
And a lot of time, narcissistic traits are survival skills on steroids.
Mm,
So now I used to be nice. I used to be this way. I used to do these things. And then I was doing it and it got me hurt. Somebody took advantage of me. Somebody
I
used me.
see.
Somebody abused me. So now I'm gonna put on this whole armor to
Mm,
where nobody is ever gonna treat me like this again. And if it happened enough times, then you will feel like nobody, nothing can ever break this wall down. Because if it breaks this wall down, it's not just breaking the wall down. I'm gonna crumble. So
yep,
they feel like
yep.
they're going to be taken, and it can be semi justifiable. And I say that because some people are at their last straw. Mentally, they can't handle another emotional breakdown, mostly because they haven't processed the other things that happen. Instead
Right.
of addressing things that happen, they just skip over it and they move on to the next thing. They skip over it. And so now, all like we said about the something like later exploding,
Yeah.
if you hold on to it long enough, then one, now I can't let the guard down, because if I let it down, I don't know how I'm gonna act if somebody do the wrong thing.
Right,
So
right.
it becomes the worst case of defense mechanisms, because you're scared to let it go. You can't let it go. And a lot of it is because you can't address yourself. And when
Mm,
you deal with people like that, if they can't accept, um I don't want to say the bad things that happen, not their part, but take it and find the lesson in how to not allow it to happen again, without putting up such a wall to where people can't even give. Like, because if you can't give out, if you can't put out, then people can't give into you either.
right,
So
right.
it is very and I am not giving that person any excuses. It does take a lot of courage to begin that self work.
Yeah, I'm not calling. I don't think it's excuses. I think it's a justification. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rationale.
Mm-hmm.
It's an explanation for it. You know. And I totally hear you, and I totally agree. I mean, there was that huge wall, and I just punctured it a little bit, and she completely shut down.
Fear.
Like it was a fear reaction, right? And I saw it in her, and it came out as anger, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, I mean, I've talked with a few therapist friends about this, and they're like, yeah, that's narcissistic rage.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
a
mean, it
thing, you know?
it, it it's so it's that, but then it goes back to, I'm scared. I
Right,
am
right.
terrified of being hurt again. So instead, and I can't let you see that I'm hurt, because I don't know how you are going to use my hurt against me. So if you see me crying, then guess what? 3 days from now, if you get pissed off, then you gonna bring up, you remember you was it. And if you are raised in a household that tears you down
Right.
more often than they lift you up, then they're always attacking you and attacking you and attacking you. And if you always are attacked by the people that you love,
Mhm.
what do you think that everybody else is going to do? Because if the
Of
people that I
course.
love have attacked me like this, then the narcissism becomes a developed thing out of
Yeah.
defense mechanism, tapped on out of defense mechanism. So now you got layers and layers of layers
Yeah.
of hurt, pain, feeling disrespected, feeling disregarded, abandonment issues normally
Yeah.
lie up under there. So when you put all those layers, it's hard to come up out of it. It's a needle in a haystack,
Yeah.
because as you take away a layer, you might face something new that you didn't realize was there, because that layer was sitting right there. So
Yeah.
it's like when it snowed here in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and you take away that first layer of snow, and it's ice. But the ice been sitting there for hours, and it's this thick. So
Yeah.
now, instead of, it's the layer of snow, then four layers of ice. So
Yeah,
guess
right.
what? As soon as you take away that first layer of snow, it melts down and it becomes another layer of ice. So
Mm.
then if it's warm in the daytime, let's say your layer of ice now is this big, so it's this big, but then
Yeah.
it freezes again. Now your layer of ice is this big, like, and it is a juggle of, how can I continue to address myself and come out of that. And then once I am out of all of those layers of hurt and all of that pain that has been layered on, all of the emotions that I have not wanted to deal with. Let's not name it hurt. Let's not name it just emotions,
Sure.
period. Because a lot of people that don't deal with unpleasant emotions, they have a hard time processing good emotions as well. So they
Mm.
don't know how to be happy when good things happen. I mean, they're temporarily happy, but they're so afraid that something is going to happen and take it away that they don't even know how to embrace that.
Mm.
So it is a lot of narcissistic tendencies, but I think understanding where narcissism comes from and
Totally.
how that those layers build up over time, to where a person feels they don't have a choice but to
Mm.
protect themselves, because they've been disappointed and let down and thrown to the wolves, especially in their mind. Even if it wasn't that extreme, that's how
Right.
they feel.
And this is probably why I kept looking at her at the end there. I was like, man, I pity you. You can't see
Mhm,
my
mhm,
side at
mhm,
all.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
at
mhm.
all. And no, she couldn't. She
Mm-mm.
literally couldn't because she was so afraid to be wrong, you
And
know.
it'll take years for her to address that because she has to be able to look at her. She's been wrong a lot of times. I don't know her from a can of paint, but she's been wrong a lot of times,
Yeah, right,
and a
right.
lot of times she's denied it. So if she accepts being wrong in one thing, now she got to look at every every other area that she was wrong, because that's not the first time. Not even
Mhm.
with you, it's probably not the first time. But
No.
now, if do you know how much people rely on their victimization to build their character, and then they become this person based on being a victim, and if they ever let this victim mentality go, who are they?
Who are they?
They don't even know. So you're right to have pity sounds crazy, but
I know. Like that's so like mean and cruel, but
no,
like
no, you feel sad. You feel
I
bad
feel
for
I feel
this
bad. I
person.
feel yeah, right. Like I knew I was right. I knew I was correct in this
And not even
situation.
trying to be right. It's just, this is just what it is.
It's like you're being immoral. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry. That's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
that's a fact that you screwed over somebody I loved, which I'm not going to go into details about it, but
Right,
like
right, right, right,
you
right.
screwed over somebody I love. You're in the wrong about that. Like it's a moral fact that screwing over somebody and stealing from them is wrong.
Right,
It's just
right,
like
right.
that's at
That's
least
just
according to
wrong.
my
Mhm.
moral values.
Mhm.
And like if
Mhm.
you disagree, then that's fine. I don't even know if we can be friends though if we disagree with that
Well, yeah,
fundamental
fundamental thing,
morality.
because that means that nothing is off limits. Nobody is off
Right.
limits, and at any point, I need to always be watching over my shoulder because of my next, and that is a hard thing to deal with. But I tell you what, when you have morals and good character, it really separates you from 95% of the world, because largely people are for self. Um,
Mm.
they 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 do things that look good in front of people that they're trying to impress, but in behind closed doors, that's not who they are. So I know I've lost a lot of people that I was like, oh, but I like them, but they're using people for money. They're stealing over here. It's just things that I don't agree with, that I don't want to be a part of, because I feel like that, guilty by association a little bit.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah,
So
wild stuff. Thank you for kind of like delving into this. This was a very interesting thing that happened for me recently, and I never again this has never happened to be like to me before, um, and so it's fascinating. So thanks, I appreciate you.
I know it felt like I was thinking to myself, like, man, we so far from where we supposed
Yeah,
to be. But if it's helpful, then I'm not upset with going off of the script, because the
no,
goal is to produce content that is not only helpful for us in this conversation, but for other listeners, because somebody struggles with dealing with people that have narcissistic tendencies, and they want to forgive them, that they want to be in their lives, but you got to understand where that comes from to
right,
even entertain the ideal of being around somebody like that, because if you understand them, then you're better able to deal with them.
truly, truly, yeah.
So how has the struggles that you face changed you as a person?
I think it's made me more humble. It's
Mm-hmm.
made me realize that there are other perspectives that are extremely valuable and other communication styles that are very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I think before this conflict, I thought the way that I communicated was best, but I don't believe that anymore. You know, with my co-founder specifically, I'm like
Mm-hmm.
his the way that he communicates is extremely valuable. It's very to the point, drilling down into the specifics, talking about the facts. I'm like, this is awesome. Like that's very important, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I absolutely try to allow space for those kind of perspectives now afterwards.
I'm sure that that brings so much more to the app creation and just the overall dynamic of the company, because when we allow ourselves to progress in the areas that we're good at, like his analytical skills are necessary. Just
Totally.
like the way that you communicate and the way that you see things, and when you put it all together, it gives you the bigger picture of what the goal is that you're trying to accomplish.
We see it in every industry. We've got the
Mhm.
engineers and we've got the physicists who are the theoretical physicists, and
Mhm.
then the actual practical physicists, the
Mhm.
engineers, the people that actually apply the theory, right?
Mhm.
I live in such a theoretical world. I think about the ideas of things constantly,
Mhm.
whereas he thinks about the practical applications of those
Of it
theories.
constantly.
It's so important. We've got the creative screenwriters in the entertainment industry. And then we've got the director of photography, the
Mhm.
director, the
Mhm.
producers. We've got the people that are
And
tech.
the producers, it's about 5 or 6 different types of producers given
Exact
the
right.
project. Yeah.
There's one in particular that I absolutely love. One of a friend of a friend, he's a creative producer. That's his title. But
Mhm.
what he speaks two different languages. He speaks the creative language, the visionary sort of language that is very much the director, the writer, all that stuff, right? The people that are the visionary for the project. But he also speaks the engineering aspect of it all. The director of photography, the lighting people, the grip, like
Mhm.
the best boys, like literally, it's like all the people that are the technicians of a set. He also speaks that language. So
And
his
that's
job
amazing.
on all these movies, he worked for Marvel recently. He's worked for like 4 movies for Marvel. And what he does is he translates the
What each other
visionary's
need. Mhm.
creative language into the engineering language. And I'm like, what a cool skill to
Yeah.
have, you know?
Yes.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
because
He's a
he brings
translator.
everything together. I've my son has been in some videos and movies. So I understand, and I have a friend that lives there in California that does production, and it is very fascinating to see when somebody can communicate well and articulate skills so that all parties are able to get exactly what the goal is. And when you're creating in film and entertainment, it is so much more complex. So to be able to have somebody that can translate on both ends is amazing.
It's such a cool skill, you know? And so that was one thing that I really kind of recognized is like, we absolutely need his perspective. And we need to hold that in very, very high regard,
Mhm.
you know? Love the guy. Love the guy. Could definitely he could definitely do with a little bit more massaging on his language, but
Mhm.
hey, at the same point, I'm like, I see
That tough love and that direct straight to it is sometimes it's hard to swallow. It can be a hard pill to swallow, but it's
totally
definitely an invaluable thing because a lot of people dance around
right.
whatever it is, whatever the topics is, the subject, they will uh, merry-go-round all the way around that thing. But to have somebody that's like, no, here, direct, this is it, and we're not gonna dance around it, and, hiding behind no bushes. We're not
Right.
sugarcoating nothing. Here it is, and that's very valuable.
What's really good is that I think what he got out of this was understanding that the value of egoless decision making,
Mhm.
that he might be wrong,
Mhm.
that his opinion is his opinion. This is how we're going to do it. Flat
Mhm.
out. This is how we're going to do it. And then I'll say, "Okay, but what about this way?" Or, "Okay, what about this? What about this process?" Or actually, I don't even know if I agree with that. How about whatever it may be. He's much easier now after that conversation. It's easier for him to pivot, and it's
Mhm.
easier for him to see my perspective now. And it's easier for him to readjust his expectations of the plan of according to him.
Mhm.
He's able to then just adjust it slightly to incorporate more of,
Whatever. Yeah.
you know,
It
more of an
sounds
outside
like
opinion.
he is like once he gets something in his head,
Yeah,
it's kind of. I mean, other stuff could happen, and he probably plans for like the little, but this is normally how it's supposed to go, and it when you're the person that's in charge and it's just you, then how it goes is whatever you think it's supposed to be. That's how you make it happen. So I
right.
can I can definitely, as a person that's a very uh exact, like, well, it says, I understand it because I've had to learn that one, it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay. It's great to get other people's perspectives because it helps you be right more.
Yeah, ain't that the truth, right? Totally. Totally.
If there was one thing that you could change about your journey, what would it be?
Hmm. If there's one thing I could change about my journey, I don't know because I do live with some regrets,
Mhm.
but I I wonder if it would be better if I moved out to Los Angeles earlier.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I don't know because I grew up in that very classic Midwestern sort of way. I did feel a little bit oppressed by it. Propriety was a thing, being proper, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and I felt very somewhat just burdened by that because I was very much somebody trying to live outside the box all the
Mhm.
time. I was the
Mhm.
youngest child, and so having like an older sibling and my parents telling me, no, 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 stop doing that. You're embarrassing us.
Mhm.
I was constantly being like, well, no, I want to do it my way. You
Right.
know, my dad asks for a Phillips screwdriver and I hand him a flathead and he's like, I asked for a Phillips. What's wrong? And I'm like, have you tried the flathead? Did it work? That kind of thing. So I don't know if there's anything that I would change. I have some regrets though, you know, mental stuff like I overdosed on, you know, shrooms back in college and
Really?
yeah,
How could you
but I
overdose on well, okay, so I have tried shrooms before. I know this is way off topic now. I have tried shrooms
yeah,
before, but very micro dosage. So like man, how many shrooms did you take?
like two portions, and it was my first time, and it was the dead
Oh
of
yeah.
winter. It was the day
Mhm.
before winter break, and I did that with some people that I do not consider to be conducive to like a good time, but I thought were. They were a little bit dramatic. They were a little bit toxic, whatever it may have been. I didn't set myself up for success because I was indoors, like dark outside, and blistering winter cold, and I was with people that
Didn't trust, yeah.
I didn't trust,
Mhm.
and it was my first time doing it, and so I did accidentally. We split it horizontally. My a friend took all the stems, and I took all the caps,
Oh
and all the
Lord.
psilocybin is in the caps, and we
Mhm.
didn't know that at the time, and so it. Long story short, I completely like destroyed my apartment. I kicked everybody out because I was just so paranoid and getting so frustrated because like my guy who I was doing it with, my good friend, he brought his girlfriend came over and started crying, and like
Oh
it was just
man,
like
just messed
so
up the
I kicked
whole
everybody
trip.
out, and then I ended up going to sleep and having this wild dream of completely tearing my apartment to shreds. And I woke up and I was like, that was a wild dream. And I looked and I saw my cat jump through my door, and I was like, oh no. And I realized I had kicked that hole in the door. So went outside, I just completely ruined my entire apartment. And I mean, we don't have to get into it, but that ended up being really, really bad. I I regret that, but it has been a fundamental part of like my journey, and so I wouldn't weirdly enough, I wouldn't change it, you know? But I regret it, but I wouldn't change it, you know? I
I
don't know.
understand.
Do you have anything
So
like that where
I
like
I asked that question because I mean of course we all have some things that's like dang, like I wish I could have did that different.
right,
But what I realized so my father passed away in 2017, and at his funeral or during the portions of getting ready for the funeral, I was talking to a cousin, and I was came to the realization that if I changed even one small thing, that it could change everything about my life now or at the
right.
time then. And then I might not even be where I am. And I love myself and the things that I've accomplished and the way I've handled things so much and who it has helped me to become to where it turned away from regretting things because now I see how it was used for my good.
Yeah, right. Like I wouldn't change it, and you wouldn't change those things either. But there are
But I
things
mean, you definitely look back and like, damn, my judgment was showing up fucking
right,
questionable.
right. Like totally. Like no
Like,
doubt,
what the hell was I thinking?
But at the
But
same
yeah,
you're like I wouldn't I don't know if I'd want to move out to LA right after high school because I was such an impressionable person at that time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like a full-fledged creative individual. What I really needed in college was that creative space to like, I didn't end up being an acting major. I pivoted to sociology and like, I'm actually really happy that I did. But what was great about my alma mater was that I had already established myself as one of the better actors in the acting department before I transitioned out of it. So I was still able to do the plays and the musicals and collaborate with grad students who were directing things and like all that stuff. So I did tons of
You get the
plays.
best of both worlds.
I got the best of both worlds and I loved my sociology degree. So I really fleshed out who I was as a creative at my university. And I really fleshed out who I was as a person, as a human. So coming out to LA right after high school, that probably wouldn't have been like a good idea because who knows how much of the like what different layers of my personality would have been made by that experience. I don't know if I would have liked that or not.
But
So.
that I am glad to give you the opportunity to reflect. It doesn't seem like though you reflect on that heavily a lot. But I definitely I appreciate that though there were some things that you believe you could have handled different, you know that changing it might not have been, as productive as your life has become because it's a lot of valuable lessons in the things that we knew we should have did or we could have done better at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If there was any advice that you could give to a listener that is needing answers or looking for some type of truth in their journey, what would that advice be?
Can I read you something?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. I have this up in my bedroom on a piece of wood that my stepmother gave me when I moved out to college. It's called the Desiderata. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay.
I mean, but I don't know. You might start reading. I'd be like, oh, wait a minute.
There's so much goodness into this. So the way that I use the Desiderata is like, okay, if I mess up in my life somehow and like I regret something, or I, because I like, don't get me wrong, like in the moments I might regret many things, or I might think about it and be like, oh, I wish I did something differently, or like I'm messed up right now. How can I change it? I look to the Desiderata, and because I kind of want to live my life by this. There's a few things that I don't in this, but the majority of this, I'm like 95% of this, I'm like, this is how I want to live my life. Okay. Here, let me read it to you. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations, In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy.
That is beautiful. I love that. It's so many points that allow you to think and reflect on not only where you are, but the potential of where you could go. And it is something that can really reshape your mind if you hadn't had the proper guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very inspirational to me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I always look back to that. And the main things that I take away from it, be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
strive to be happy, strive to be happy. Don't be happy, strive to be happy. Always look for the good in things,
Mm-hmm.
in the whatever your labors and aspiration, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. It's like, with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Like that,
Yeah, no matter, because the thing, life is gonna life, and you still have to be able to see the good in the life that you have, because no matter how bad it can get, there is good if you're willing to look for it.
Yeah, truly. And set yourself up for success. Try to
Yeah.
find those things. Set yourself
Mm-hmm.
up so you're actually creating the experiences for yourself to where you can go experience the beauty of life.
Yes,
You need both. You absolutely do.
you definitely do. So, do you have any books or podcasts? Tell our viewers how to find you as well.
Books or podcasts? I don't have any books or podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't written anything. I've written a bunch of blog posts on the MuseFlow website. So you can look us up at museflow.ai. That's our website, http://museflow.ai. We're always looking for more feedback. So I'd love to hear if anybody, tries it out and lets me know what they think. Like, I'm here for those conversations. User feedback is extremely important to us. So
Right.
that's how we keep improving our app. We just had a user who was colorblind, and he was like, "Hey, you need some accessibility features here." And we're like, "Oh man, thank you so much for pointing that out." Like, we literally made it that week, a toggle to change the colors on the app. And I'm like, hell yeah, great. So those kind of things, like, I'm here for those conversations. I'm here for your thoughts. museflow.ai. If you're interested in learning how to play piano, try it out. We got a 7-day free trial for you.
Ooh, I was gonna ask if there's a free trial. So again, the links and everything will be listed down below. Make sure that you click the link, check them out. It sounds like an amazing app. I want to try it. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano. That's why I got the piano. I'm thinking my kids is gonna pick up the slack where I lack. And guess what? They was like, never that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's so disappointing. I spent a good, I think it was about $6,000-7,000 on this piano.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't even use it.
Oh no. That's how it goes, though, right? You got to give everything to your kids, and
yeah.
sometimes they're like, "No, forget about it. I don't want it."
Listen,
No.
And then the time that I did actually have an instructor that would come over from their school, oh my gosh, he was falling asleep. He was old. It was just like, bruh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is going now? If they were enthused at first, you just killed it for them.
Yeah.
You just ruined it.
There's a lot of curmudgeons in music education, and
Yeah.
thankfully we work with a bunch of teachers that are like really excited about this new way of teaching, learning how to actually learn the notes outside of the context of songs and then applying them to songs that get unlocked. It's a whole new way of doing it. So if the original way of teaching never worked for you, try it out.
This is it.
This might be a thing that actually revolutionizes music education for the better. I'm not going to say it humbly. I'm going to say this might be the revolution. So,
do you want a revolution? Woo, woo.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, it was so great talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you again and see how the app is going.
Thanks, Dr. Kaci. I appreciate it.
All right. Till next time, everybody. Bye.
Hi, I'm Kaci, Dr. Kaci. Welcome to Speaking Freedom. We are happy to have you, and we hope that we are able to help you in every way possible. Have a good evening. If you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. New episode every Friday.